Hi, welcome back to this one. So in the previous video, we were looking at how to set up a DBT project. Now we set up our first DBT project, and now we sort of have opportunity to see the structure of what a DBT project looks like. So now we come into a DBT project, which is essentially like the Briteflux house. And with the Briteflux warehouse, we have the opportunity to see, the different folders, which is essentially like analysis. You have the macros, you have the models, you have the seeds, you have the snapshots, the tests, and so on and so forth. We would, basically come into these folders one after the other. Now, the analysis folder is usually used to do analysis. I don't see so much people using this folder. I mean, for most of the projects that I have, been involved, this folder is not usually used. And then you have the macros. Now, the macros is essentially trying to template, or trying to do a function. So if you're very used to like programming, which is Python, and you would be aware of the function. So the macros are like you trying to build a function you would maybe use later on in the project. So when you build a macro, it's like a new function and maybe it's not available with, the default SQL. This could be like a certain trick your company basically always calculates. In some cases, it could be like you're trying to maybe you work in a different time zone and always you have to convert to a certain time zone every time. And because of that, maybe this is something that is required in your data set, in your queries. And so you could just make a function out of it and save it in the macros. Another folder is like the models folder. Now, if you notice, this is like the example, like model/example. The name of this folder is actually model, but there's also another folder in it, which is called the example folder. And that's why you see it like that. But if maybe I create a new folder, let's call this example 2, then you will notice that automatically now the example folder comes out like, more distinctive. Now, this is where you sort of save your, this models folder is where you save all your SQL queries that you used for your transformation. So this is where you find them. Usually you should structure your folders. You could build like subfolders in the folder, like, the example folder is a subfolder of the models folder. And this is a very good strategy to sort of group similar folders together. So this project is your organization project. Then you could have different departments, and the different type of data set in another folder. And you could have so many different structure. This could be best practices that we could keep in the core. Now, we then have like the artifacts, which are stored in the folder. These are the SQL queries, which we'll be looking shortly. And you have like, another one, which is, these are like defaults. These are default like, artifacts that comes with the project. At the end of the day, we will delete, build our own project. Now we go to the seed. The seed is essentially a strategy where you can bring in like a CSV file into your data warehouse. This is a strategy that helps to, maybe you have a certain data that is really changing nowhere on your data warehouse already, or maybe it's changing just once in a while. This could be a strategy. You could keep your CSV file and when run your test, or when you sort of like push this to your repo, then you should have like this data in your database. Another one is snapshot. Snapshot is a way to sort of like, take different, pictorial state of the database. This is what the snapshot could look like. In other, if you're really used to like SQL, you might we check this topic of SCD, slowly changing dimensions. This could be one way that to get a better understanding of what snapshots are. Now, when you go to the next folder, you have tests. Now, the tests are essentially, folders that we use to sort of like, like DBT has its own out of the box tests. But then, of course, maybe because we have some specific use cases with our company, we might like to build some extra tests. Right? And tests are sort of ways that we can ensure that the data, our logic is correct in one end, and also maybe the data set that we're getting from the source is actually correct as well. Now, that will be the case. You have the Git clause, which is essentially a Git property that tells you, okay, when you when we save this project back into our Git repository, please ignore these folders, right? We don't need the target folder, for instance. We don't need the DBT package folders, which would be something that we would sort of have when we start installing packages. This is something that you will see later. And then we don't need the logs. Right? The logs are sort of this, folder that's been hidden. These logs basically give like report of, different actions that we take while we're, building our queries. Maybe when we sort of like, test the queries or, something like that. So the logs are a good way to also debug your project. And this is this can be really useful in different ways. Now, your DBT project.yml file. Now, what is the DBT project.yml file? This is a folder that basically interacts. This file actually interacts with your profile that we built previous video. Basically interacts, and also basically you notice like the name of the profile is sort of like the same as the one we provided, and also it states like where to find what. So it basically says like for the models you find in the model folder, the analysis part you find in the analysis folder, test part like that. And so if maybe, for instance, we would like to change this folder name, then we will need to come here to tell, okay, so the models will be found in the new folder name. And so this is just the idea of like, it's basically mapping the folders, like where you can find separate things. So we have like this files, which are very, very, really important to our project. And so now what do we have next? What we have next is we have like, we come back, we take a step back and look at this schema.yml file. Now the schema.yml is a file that is sort of encouraged to have. We could have multiples of it. Now this file is essentially used to document our, and also it could also be used to import our data set. We will come back into this, but in the meantime, the first thing we'll be doing in this case is to just run, just run DBT run. DBT run is one of the commands from DBT. So, for instance, DBT, we get all the possible commands as well. So we have like the DBT build, which basically runs all the model, snapshot, and test. We have the clean, DBT clean, which is basically, it's just, checking like, basically cleaning like random folders that don't really make sense. We have DBT clone that basically can be used to clone different nodes, and DBT compile is just basically like, checking. It's basically like, almost like running all the seeds, all that as well, and all the tests, very much similar to build. Then we have the DBT debug, which is showing it's basically debugging our work environment, checking with the test, checking everything is fine, checking that our profile, our profile information is correct, it's connecting to Snowflake, and everything is still working properly. And DBT deps is used to install the packages. We're still coming back to that. DBT docs is read documentation. DBT init was the one we used to initialize our project. DBT list is used for to list resources in the project. We're coming to that. Then we have a few other ones. We have like DBT run, which we to run. It's very much similar to DBT build, but it's a bit different in its own. It's usually runs the queries, but it might not do the test. And also we could use the particular SQL that we would like to run. Of course, we're coming to that. So I think this is just some of the common things that we see DBT test, we just see DBT seed, we can just run the CSV files like we said. And then DBT snapshot we can use to run the snapshots particularly. So in the next one, we would go around and maybe run our first DBT, or perhaps we should already run our first DBT. Now, when we run our first DBT, you could say DBT run. And what happens is it runs all the SQL, models that we have. You see, like it comes success. It's the first one and runs the second one. And so, what we would notice is if we go to our Snowflake, then we try to see what is happening in our DBT test. We would notice that a new table has been formed here and a view has been formed, which is my first DBT model and my second DBT model. And when we come back, we will see this is the first DBT model, which is materialized to be a table. And this is my second DBT model, which is without really specifying the materialization. In the next video, we'll come back and try to understand why certain things work in certain ways. Looking forward to that. Thank you.